Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the MFC Approach podcast. As always, I'm happy to be here and have a really special guest with me today. Laura Savino is the guest that we have on the podcast today. And I first met Laura through, it's kind of funny, my mentor / coach had her on a group call of his, and she broke down the Chronometer app and how to effectively use Chronometer. And from that moment on, I got so much value from the conversation, Laura, that we had, that I knew like at some point I really wanted to have you on the podcast and pick your brain and have everybody else who listens learn from you as well. So thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, Luke, happy to be here. I know you asked a bunch of great questions on that call, and kind of happy to dive in on some of these tactical things. I love to share really the hands-on approach of nutrition and really thinking about it from an analytical and tactical perspective. And it'll be fun to kind of chat through that today.
Yeah. I mean, in the description of the podcast, I'm going to be sure to post all of your socials and stuff. And then at the end, if there's anything else you want to mention, like that you other people could check out of yours, obviously would love to have that, because like I said, guys, I feel like Laura is just like a wealth of knowledge. And I've really enjoyed kind of going through your Instagram and getting a better idea of how you structure things as a coach. If I'm being honest, it's a little bit different than I feel like what most coaches do. And so I think it's a really cool approach. And it seems like based off of all the testimonials and stuff that are on there, like that it works really well. So,
yeah, I mean, I think every coach comes in with a different process and a different audience. And the one thing that I've learned over the last few years is that there is a coach for everybody, but you have to make sure that you have the coach that's right for you. So people who often end up being ideal fits for me are a little bit more analytical, a little more, maybe they're coming from an engineering or like even a sales background, or people who are like, okay, I just need the step-by-steps to get there. But they don't necessarily want a hard approach or a more feelings-based approach, or maybe less of a gym approach. So when we think about like different strokes for different folks is so true, because I've definitely had people that sign up for a consultation. I'm like, hey, this is not gonna be a good fit. Like this is not going to get out of the gates well. And I think being important, like Luke, I know you really appeal to a lot of dads and like serving your families, and how do you put yourself forward? And obviously that's not my audience right there. And so finding that kind of niche as a coach and discussing to your audience and that tactical also helps kind of differentiate who you are as a person too.
I agree with that 100%. And I love that you mentioned that too, Laura. Like that's something that I try and mention to people, like when I get on calls with people, is like, hey, I want to do this because I want to make sure that like you feel good about me and I feel good about you, and that we're going to work well together. Because I think that is, I mean, when you are getting a coach, that's probably the most important thing. There's so many resources out there now that, I mean, if you want to, you could just go and pay for a program or something like that. But obviously, you're going to be missing out on a lot of things that a coach offers as well, a lot of knowledge and expertise, as well as accountability. So anyways, I appreciate you sharing that though. Oh my goodness, I think I just got a bloody nose. Time out. I got a tissue right here. I'm not even going to edit this. We're just going to let it roll.
Yeah, that's solid. I mean, it's that time of year, dude, that we had a weird cold snap and now it's warm again, and it's very, very dry. So
every change of season, I feel like no matter what the season is, I get bloody noses. So anyway, sorry guys, bear with me for a sec. But yeah, Laura, so thank you so much again. I'm really excited to kind of pick your brain on a couple of things. And I had a question that was posed in my Instagram story. Here I am with the tissue shoved up my nose now.
It's a good thing I'm not squeamish.
Yeah, I am glad. Anyways, I had somebody ask a really, really good question, and I just want to get us kicked off with that question, because I think I would dare say most people probably have a similar question. And so they asked what eating healthy actually looks like. So, I mean, I think this could go a lot of different directions, but I'm kind of curious, like, what is your take on that, Laura? What would you say to somebody who asked you that question?
Yeah. So that is a question that seemingly has an easy answer, but to be honest, it really just depends.
Yeah.
I would think if we look at a very high macro view, if I were to say, hey, we're generally eating in a healthful direction, we're eating 3 meals a day, at least, protein forward. We have some form of a fruit or a vegetable at every meal, and we have a bit of variety throughout the week. It might look like all your breakfasts are the same, but that we rotate through the veggies a little bit. We rotate through our maybe starch options, whether it's sweet potatoes, white potatoes, rice, pasta, squash, etc. But if we have a general meal blueprint that allows us to hit a protein minimum and eat regularly and feel fueled, that would be a high level view, but it really depends on where that person's goals are too. Like I think from a health perspective, that's a pretty solid blueprint. If you are knocking those boxes, like 20 meals a week, we're having a protein forward meal with a fruit or veggie or some sort of like thing that's grown out of the ground on the plate, we're doing some really good things there, which sounds simple, but in our modern food environment can be tougher than you might think.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I think that is a great blueprint. I think it's interesting when I'm thinking, when I'm thinking about somebody who's asking me this question, and especially on social media, I think it's just interesting to consider, what possibly they have come across on social media. We have so many experts, right? Like air quotes experts on social media now. Everybody's an expert, it seems like, in something. And I think I love that this person asked the question, because I think it can be so confusing. like you get somebody preaching the carnivore diet, and it's like, this is the healthiest, best way of eating, or I mean, other really fad diets. I'm not saying that those are wrong, but at the same time too, it's like, I feel like most of the time, if a diet has a name like that, it's probably not sustainable, and it's probably not getting you a very well balanced diet. And so you're probably not getting a lot of the nutrients and other benefits from foods that you could be getting if you just were more well-rounded versus a really extreme diet one way or the other.
Totally. So. And it doesn't allow for life. And if there's one thing that I really like to chat with my people about and on Instagram is like, if we have a Venn diagram of what our life is doing and what our goals are, that needs to be basically 2 circles that overlap. Yeah. And when you start out, they might not be even 2 circles that touch, but you got to slowly, I got to move either my lifestyle closer to my goals, or I need to move my goals closer to my lifestyle. And you didn't hear either of us say that a healthy or healthful way of eating excludes anything. Yeah. We just said it includes a number of things. I'll tell you, in the summer, in farmers market season, you will probably see a cupcake or a cookie as part of that protein forward meal, 1 meal a day for about 8 weeks in a row, because there's, farmers market baked goods are in a food group of their own. And I might go, you know what? My dinner is going to be steak, a cupcake, and some sauteed kale, because that doesn't sound good to me that day. But again, it all just depends on where your goals are, where your maintenance calories are, and where you are at that period of time. But I think building forward of going, do I have some plant diversity and some protein 3 meals a day is a really, really great place to start and hone in from.
Yeah, I love that. I love that a lot. And one of the things I feel like I say a lot to my clients is like, and I know there's a lot of coaches out there who kind of take this approach, but it's like, I hate viewing things as good and bad, just like so blanketly, like good, bad, this is good, this is bad for you. Only eat the good things, never eat the bad things. It's like, that's just not realistic in any sense of the word. And honestly, even the bad foods, right? They even have some sort of caloric benefit or something that you could positively take from that. Obviously, you shouldn't be eating a dozen chocolate chip cookies a day. No, that's not what we're saying, even though that sounds wonderful at times, maybe. But yeah, so the point is like, just be well-rounded, right? Try not to take too extreme of an approach or too restrictive of an approach to dieting and to eating healthy. So awesome. Awesome. Thank you. I think we touched that pretty good. So if you guys have any more follow-up questions on that, obviously be sure to let me know. And, maybe we could get Laura's take on any follow-up questions as well. So today, Laura, I mean, since I, first met you on the call with Jeff, I was just really we were focused on nutrition and tracking. And I think that is a skill that I just feel like a lot of people don't look at as a skill. They look at it as a nuisance, and something that they don't want to do. And so I want to get your take on tracking in general and how tracking our food can ultimately play into us hitting our goals.
Yeah. So tracking is a tool that helps us build awareness around what we're eating. That's it. Unfortunately, many of the tracking apps, when you open them out of the gate, will be like, oh, okay, cool. Here are very specific goals. And anybody who is opening a tracking app for the first time really has no business having any sort of specific macro targets because you've never tracked your food before. In fact, you getting just to tracking an entire full day, let alone a week, might take a month or two as you build the skills of tracking your food. And the way that I like to approach tracking here is it's a way to build awareness and go, oh, okay, is this food helping me or hurting me? Or if you go, hey, the next day, man, I'm really constipated or I'm having digestive distress, we can easily go look and yesterday, oh, hey, a couple of these things might be the reason you have digestive distress. And tracking creates a data source for us to pull from to help you push you in the right direction. I recently put out a post about do you have to track to reach your goals? The answer is honestly, no, you don't. You just have to do other things. So tracking allows us to create a framework on how we're going to eat in a day. You can also create that framework by creating rules around food. You can decide you're going to follow a specific diet, whether it's like paleo or keto. You can decide you're going to have only eat 3 meals a day, or I'm not snacking, or I only eat between certain windows. All of these are just different kinds of rules that you implement to help you get to where you go. The problem is if you're not using something like tracking, you don't know where to adjust if things aren't working for you. So tracking gives you a lot more food freedom because once you are in the habit of it, you've got that being second nature. You're like, oh, okay, I can see where I've been the last few weeks. I'm losing weight when I don't want to be losing weight, or I'm gaining weight when I don't want to be gaining weight. I know where to make adjustments versus going, ooh, okay, I'm gaining and I've been eating keto for a while. Where do I do? Do I eat less? But how do we quantify what less is? How do we quantify what more is? And tracking gives you that blueprint of going, it's very, very clear when we have the data to look at tracking. And so I find it helpful for clients to be like, oh, I have a cheeseburger. I just went out and got another cheeseburger. Well, the cheeseburger we got at Freddy's Custard is not the same as the cheeseburger we ate at home. I was like, let's take a look. Like the cheeseburger you ate at home, well, you made it with 90-10 burgers and you had a brioche bun from a local bakery. That's it. The Freddy's burger is like with, I don't know, 60-40 ground meat, and it's deep fried and it's got 8 slices of cheese on it and it's delicious. The reason why it's delicious is because it has 1,000 more calories in it than the one they made at home. But if we're thinking, oh, I just always have a cheeseburger, you don't really know what that difference is. And so for me, tracking is the tool that allows you to not have food rules. It does help you build a framework, and it goes, oh, these foods are maybe serving me or not serving me, but that doesn't label them good or bad. Whereas we might have these are allowed or these are not allowed in other dietary implementations.
I love that. I love that so much. I'm curious, do any of your clients not track, Laura?
I, at this point, only take on clients who are willing to learn how to track. However, I do have many clients that have been with me for a long time that we now don't track, or we don't track certain times of the week or certain times of the year. So I do teach all my clients, hey, now that we have learned how to tracking, again, is the tool to build awareness. Yeah. Once we have the awareness, the tracking is just kind of a double check for us. So one of the things, if we are going to be in a prolonged period of maintenance for a time and we're not chasing a muscle building or fat loss goal or performance goal, well, we have a lot of flexibility. Hey, how do we start trusting ourselves again? How do we know that we're eating? And so, there's a framework for transitioning off tracking that I like to implement for clients is once they've got that blueprint, they feel really solid. Okay, I know that, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or work days, I'm eating 3 meals and a snack right before I get home from the gym because that works well for me. Okay, start testing yourself. Don't track those days. that are the exact same. Like if you meal prepped on Sunday and you have very similar meals Monday through Thursday, let's just start there. You're only going to track your weekends, or maybe one day a week and your weekends. And then we slowly ease off from that while we're still using weight and photos and circumference measurements. And you learn to trust yourself because you built that foundation when you were tracking. So I currently don't take on any clients that do not want to track at all because it's just not in alignment with my process. And I think there are other coaches out there who are going to serve them better. But for those that do, then we do teach you how to not use it after the case.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, to be honest, I mean, yeah, ideally, I think everybody would be able to eat intuitively, and be able to hit their goals and stuff. But the bottom line is like, that's just not likely. I think first and foremost, because of just lack of knowledge and understanding, like what an actual portion size looks like, and an understanding of some of the things you mentioned, like a burger at Freddy's versus a burger at home. Those are two very different burgers, even though it's both a cheeseburger. So I totally agree. I think awareness is one of the biggest things that comes from that. And then obviously knowledge and understanding as well. I love the approach you take. And that's something I tell clients all the time too, is like, look, I don't think tracking should be something you plan on doing for the rest of your life. Like I really don't. And ideally, yeah, we get to a point in the coaching process where it's like, let's start to wean off of this a little bit. But bottom line is like, I think tracking is something that should be used as a tool. And even when you do wean off of it, I think from time to time, it's probably good to practice that skill again, and just make sure that your intuitive eating is still in check and is still in alignment with the actual portions and sizes of serving sizes of food that you should be eating, to maintain or whatever it is you're looking to do. So yeah, no, I like that a lot. I guess, how would you say tracking plays a role in dieting effectively, or would you say that there are, I mean, is that something that you would say is key for dieting effectively? And if not, like what other options are there outside of that? I guess that's what I'm trying to kind of wrap my head around right now and give people examples of, but honestly, I have a hard time thinking of what would be ideal outside of that.
Right. So if we are thinking about dieting and our goal is fat loss, we have to create a caloric deficit. So also, let's start with the non-tracking options that a lot of people end up gravitating to. So a couple things that people gravitate to is, I'm going to do keto, or I'm going to do Whole30, or I'm going to do intermittent fasting. So I'm going to eliminate a meal a day. However, in that constraint, we still don't have awareness of what we're taking in. We're just either limiting food groups, eliminating time of eating, or eliminating snacking or something. So we've effectively created a caloric deficit because we're eliminating snacks or we're eliminating carbs or something. And that will work for a while, but your body is really, really great at going, okay, we're in a deficit. Like, I'm going to send some additional hunger signals, or I'm going to auto-regulate down in order to slow this deficit, because your body doesn't want to naturally lose fat. It's like, hey, these are our energy stores. We don't lose this. And so things that might happen, for example, if you're eating paleo, you might just end up with more meat on your plate than you would traditionally had. Or like, oh, I'm still eating these meals, but I've made these meals more calorically dense than they were before because I've got a little more, I've got hunger cues coming in. Side by side with that, your body will downregulate. And if you're not tracking not only your food, but also like steps, you may find, oh, I'm eating the same, but I've now actually started moving less. And it doesn't have to be much, but it could be just enough that I've started to move less, and therefore I've stopped my deficit, and I go, okay, now what do I do? Okay, so if we're not tracking any of these things, we don't know where to make a change when things stop working. Like, do you go, if you're doing intermittent fasting, do you go from 2 meals a day to 1 meal a day? Well, that's a big jump too. The second piece in there is, it just, if it's not getting measured, we don't have a specific timeline, we don't have a specific rate of loss, we don't really know what we're quite doing. And then it also makes it a lot more difficult if you're implementing these rules and you have a social schedule. Or you've got kids who've got early morning swim meets. Well, maybe that's a problem when you're trying to implement a time restricted eating window, but now you got to wake up at 4 a.m. and drive across the county to a swim meet that starts at 6 a.m. and you're not eating till 2. Well, that might cause some untoward behavior that we don't want to have. So there's a number of things that go on if we are not tracking. There's just a lot of noise and we don't know where. The biggest thing I'll say to people who are taking a non-tracking approach is that we don't have good levers to pull when we get stuck, because we don't know why we're stuck. Are we stuck from lack of movement? Is it stuck because we have 1 or 2 high days a week that are completely throwing off our progress because of the swim meet situation? So and the other thing that tends to be problematic for people too, and this is often, I'm sure you've seen this with many of your clients coming in, is when they've taken dieting approaches, their goal is as little as possible. Mm-hmm. And what I see is, oh, okay, like I'll have a client going, oh, if I'm not that hungry, I can just skip dinner, right? Because I'll be at 1,100 calories for the day instead of maybe my target of 1,600 calories. And I go, no, you are going to eat that dinner, because what's going to happen tomorrow? Like, you might hit 11 calories today, but tomorrow or the next day, especially in female clients, you see this boomerang effect where they will like, oh, I dove my face into the sleeve of Oreos in the pantry and it felt uncontrollable. Well, I'm like, that's your body catching up for me that day you skipped dinner.
Yeah.
Too. So rather than, and that often happens too, and you go, oh, well, just a few Oreos, but at the same time, when we look at the big picture, that brought up our entire week. We may have a very, very high day. That is when your body's like also most likely to store body fat, is when you have a high day in deficit. So a lot of noise and not sure what those variables are when we're not tracking. So before I get into tracking, like, do you want to interject anything before I just keep going? Yeah.
I love that. And I love that last point you made, especially. It's like, there's so much noise that can play a factor and can play a role. And if we don't have something to turn to, it's like, how are we going to know what that is? One thing that I just have been thinking about since we've started talking is like, we've mentioned some specific diets, and somebody close to me experiences like some gut issues pretty regularly. And one thing that she'll do often is she'll do an elimination diet. And she gets a better idea, of what exactly is playing a role in that. But at the same time too, it's just eliminating and not tracking. And so I'm kind of curious now, like I'm going to take this back to her and talk about it a little bit more, because I'm just curious, if there would be benefits. Well, obviously I think there would be benefits, is what I'm trying to get at, to tracking your food, even though, you are eliminating an entire food group, like, dairy, or gluten, or things like that. I still think there would be a lot of benefits to understanding, what you are putting into your body and how it is affecting you. So anyways, that was kind of where my mind was going. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in that scenario too.
Yeah.
And the thing, as somebody who is a severe gluten, borderline celiac issue, severe dairy issue, understanding the interplay of some of these micros, so fiber, sodium, fat, and water intake play massive impact on our digestion too. And so if you are a person who is trying to heal some of these issues, an elimination diet alone, if you have one specific trigger food, can be helpful. But if you're like, something is going wrong and I'm having, IBS symptoms or other things going on, being able to go, okay, what's the interplay here? Oh, these days where my fats are a little bit higher than I normally have has created, okay, this is going to be gross, but I think your clients mostly men. So what I call the luge effect. If you have a lot of fat, you either goes 2 ways. You got a lot of fat in your system and you just grease the insides and everything is coming out real quick, or nothing comes out at all, just depending on how your plumbing works. And so understanding how some of those things go together, going, oh, it's not just I didn't track or I went keto. Well, like that play of dietary fat on your digestion can be massive.
Yeah. And I think with the elimination diet specifically too, you try and work things back into your diet to see, what is affecting you. And again, I think this is another just reason why tracking would be so beneficial, is because once you do start feeling something, it's like, okay, let's look what. So awesome. I love that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of our clients tend to live in a vacuum where they go, if my stomach hurts today, it's something I did today. I was like, no, it's probably something you did yesterday or potentially even the day before that, with a delayed effect or stomach digestion, etc. And so understanding, okay, if I'm tracking, what did I do the last 24, 36 hours that could be playing a factor here?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really insightful. That's good.
Okay. So tracking for a fat loss. Why I prefer tracking for fat loss, it gives you a framework to go by. Okay. So, for example, we've kind of touched on this blueprint approach of the 3 meals a day. So for example, if you're in a deficit and your goal, your deficit targets we've just determined we're going to start fat loss at 1800 calories. Well, then you've got a framework for, okay, I need to eat 3 600-calorie meals in a day. All right, sweet. I've got my blueprint, 3 600-calorie meals. And oh, by the way, your protein goal is 120. So I have to have 40 grams of protein plus or minus in each meal. Maybe a little bit less at breakfast, 35, because you're doing a little bit higher fat options like eggs and sausage. And then we just bump the protein slightly at later dinners. Well, that gives you a blueprint that doesn't require you to be following a specific diet. It doesn't require you to have a very specific time window. It just goes, hey, I have these 3 meals that I need to divvy up. Oh, I'm going out to dinner. Okay, what can I do that sort of fits in that blueprint to help me hit those calorie goals? How can I pre-plan for these things that come up? And then, if we're 4 weeks in this deficit and you've been at 1800 calories plus or minus 50, I don't ever set a specific target. So if I'm giving you 1800 calories, I'm going to say 1750 to 1850, just hit somewhere in those guardrails. Good enough. Get at least 120 grams of protein, and then we'll go from there. Well, now we've got to go, okay, hey, we've been trending downwards for half a pound a week for 4 weeks. If you want to be more aggressive because you'd like to see a faster rate of loss, we know where to go from there. Yeah. We know, okay, hey, now we can look at your blueprint and be like, we need to pull 50 calories off of each meal. And then walk through, what does that look like? Ooh, we've still had like a bagel thin at breakfast. Maybe we need to swap to like just one larger slice of toast. We had 120 grams of rice at lunch, 100 grams of rice. And we can easily pull those 50 calories off and start shrinking so that you still get to eat roughly the same things. We're just going to shrink everything a little bit to better fit your goals. And for those clients to get in their head a little bit about going, okay, like, I don't feel like anything's working. What's going on? Well, we can lay it out and be like, hey, look, no, your rate of loss is here. Here's where it is. We have a path to either keep that rate of loss, increase it, or potentially decrease it based on your goals. And it's a less of a, well, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to quit. Like, we have an action plan, and then we could have a conversation. Like, okay, well, here we are at 6 weeks in this deficit. We've lost 3 to 4 pounds based on this rate of loss. Do you want to get a little bit more aggressive? Do you want to get a little less aggressive? Here's all those steps. And it becomes a very factual conversation at that point. Like, how's your biofeedback going? Versus we're not throwing spaghetti at the wall. We know exactly where you need to go and make those adjustments.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that I was just experiencing with a client. Had him in a good deficit, and he wanted to increase the rate of fat loss. And so we decreased him we decreased him another 300 calories. And anyways, it didn't take long for him to realize that he was feeling it. He was really feeling it, feeling weak, and a lot of the signs that you would expect to see. And ultimately, we decided that it wasn't worth it. And we've come back up to the more moderate deficit versus the extreme deficit. But again, it's like without tracking the food and knowing how his body was responding at the 1800 calories, when we put him at a little bit lower, 1500, it was really obvious to us, like, hey, that's too much. Let's get you back up. So yeah, I love that. And I love just kind of hearing what you're saying and then applying it to some like really, physical, tangible examples that I've had with clients. So that's great. The other thing I keep thinking too, Laura, is like, and I don't know, I hope this doesn't like derail us too much, but I just keep thinking about like this form of dieting and this approach to dieting, especially when you're talking like a fat loss approach. It's so interesting to me how often, I see people who say, hey, I need to lose some body fat. I'm going to do the keto diet. They lose a ton of weight and then they stop doing the keto diet. And within, a month or 2 months, all of that weight is right back on, if not more weight is back on. And so I don't know, the thing I'm taking away from all this, and that, I've always believed, is like, that is why sustainability is such a huge goal. And that is why tracking is such an awesome tool at building sustainability. The minor adjustments that you can make when you track your food and see, like you were saying, like, hey, if we want to go a little deeper, then let's just take 50 calories off of each meal. And that doesn't, like, that's not significant. Those adjustments are super easy to make. Whereas if you're not tracking and you're just following an extreme dieting format, it's like those changes are not easy to make. And when you're done doing that, which you inevitably will be at some point, you have nothing to go off of at that point. It's like you just go back to what you knew before. So
totally. And I think the thing for people to recognize too, which that brought up coming back off keto. So we have weight trends and weight fluctuations that happen. Like, we know that we lose quite a bit of water at the beginning of every deficit because you're usually cutting out carbs. You go from a high carb environment to keto, you might drop 6 pounds in the first couple of days because of just lack of water, intramuscular water. But the second thing is that when we come out of a deficit, that is our most sensitive time for body fat regain. And one of the most common mistakes we see is like, oh, I'm super, super dialed and I'm out of it. Now I can just go back to maintenance. However, your body is going to send hunger signals that are higher than your maintenance calories are. Usually I see 10 to 14 days post diet. For some people, it's quite a bit longer. And if you come out of this with no plan, you're like, oh, I'm kind of eating the normal things I normally eat, but that's an extra snack here, an extra snack there. And we've just gone from a deep deficit to regaining all that water because we added those carbs back in, and then putting ourselves straight into a surplus. And unfortunately, when we do that, without the aid of tracking, most of that weight regained is not lean tissue, but body fat, especially in that first couple weeks post diet, because your body's like, oh, we got to replenish these energy stores that we lost. And so that body fat regain sensitivity is super high. And those, like, I generally tell my clients, like, hey, we got to do maintenance for the 4 weeks post deficit. And we got to be dialed, because I want you to get back into a nice homeostasis. Your body's feeling good again at these maintenance calories. But if we're not tracking, you have really no way to gauge whether that's actually maintenance or not, especially because when we just introduced that 6 pounds of water regained right off the bat. So your weight trends are all over the place if you don't know where your maintenance is.
Yeah, man. I mean, thinking of examples again, I think I don't want to like make this about me, but it's just like such an obvious example that I love to share with people now, because I think, especially because I did a bodybuilding prep, and obviously when you're doing a bodybuilding prep and you're lean and you're shredded and you look amazing, you don't feel amazing, just so you know. Everybody though sees that and they're just like, holy cow, but obviously I was in a pretty extreme deficit, and I chose to cancel my coaching right after my show. And he warned me. He said, hey, I'm just going to warn you, like, you have to be smart about this. You have to kind of ease back into things. And this was before I really had dived into nutrition and like understood, how our body responds a little bit more. It messed me up. I mean, I went from, eating in an extreme deficit to eating in an extreme surplus. And because I just wanted all of the stuff. And it was insane, like how it affected me, not only obviously physically, but like emotionally and mentally. And I felt like crap. I looked like crap. Like, I've never had like a gut like that on me before, but like for 6 to 9 months after my bodybuilding prep, I was in the worst place I think I have ever been. And it took a lot of work to come out of that. Which I feel fortunate that I had a pretty good foundation, of fitness and relative nutrition, like I always had a pretty good diet before that. But it's insane, like how, if you're not paying attention to those things and you're not allowing your body time to make those adjustments, especially coming out of a fat loss phase, it will destroy you. Yeah. It will. And so anyways, I think that it's so valuable and so important, again, to understand these things, to use the tools that we have been given, and to have somebody. I think that's really the time where I understood the importance of having somebody hold you accountable, having a coach in your corner and on your side. Whereas like, I know that's a really extreme example, but at the same time too, you don't have to do a bodybuilding show or something like that to mess yourself up too much. Like coming out of a deficit, like it's applicable to anyone and everyone. So.
And we're not trying to scare you guys here. I will say that sounded a little doom and gloom here.
That did. My bad. That was on me.
Also, like, okay, well, in Luke's scenario, doing bodybuilding prep, that like 10 to 14 days of like high hunger post deficit is just exponentially longer because of how extreme the diet is. So it's all that those hunger cues that we're seeing with our like lifestyle clients, probably like 2 to 3 weeks tops, because we're putting you in a deficit where our goal is to do this in a sustainable way and come out of it sustainably. So you're not going to have those, but what we're trying to say is you can do it successfully if you're tracking. Not tracking, it just puts a lot of question marks out there.
So I apologize. I think it was an extreme example. However, I think it paints the picture, right? Like, so yeah, it may not be that extreme for most people, especially for lifestyle people who, it's funny because I feel like most clients who come to me say like, look, I'm not looking to be jacked or shredded or anything like that. Like, I just want to improve my health. And I'm like, noted. And I don't know, it's funny too. I feel like that's a really common thing for people to say. And every time I'm like, I promise you won't. Like I have tried my entire life and I still am working towards that. So anyways, so I do appreciate that kind of bringing us back in a little bit. We're not, definitely not trying to scare anybody, but I just think it paints a really good picture. So awesome. Do you have anything else, Laura, that you wanted to touch on with that, or?
Yeah, I would just kind of bring it home with our goal is to help you guys do this successfully and also sustain it successfully. And many times in the past, you've probably tried some of these approaches. And the biggest issue is that it's not that you didn't diet well. You probably did. Like many people come to us like, hey, I did the keto, I did the thing. The problem is we didn't have an approach for how to exit the plan. And tracking, one, gives us a guardrails on how to exit the plan. But two, the part we didn't really touch on is the sustainability aspect of doing something. This is why tracking can help a little bit, is like we don't change our foods very much between deficit to maintenance to build. We just eat a little bit less of the same things we're normally doing. Maybe we rotate out the pizza that's normally on Friday night and you're like, pizza may not hit our goals just because it's not a super high satiety food. So I'd rather not even bother at this time of fat loss, but it's not that I can't have it. So I'm choosing not to have it because it doesn't quite quell the hunger as something else might do. And that would be our biggest takeaway here is like, how do we help guide you in a successful fat loss phase where you get to keep it off? And a big part of that is the tracking piece. And the second part of that is the sustainability piece and getting out of your head when things stall, because we have a plan on how to unstall you.
Yeah, for sure. Sustainability. Yeah, I think that's a good way to bring it home. I appreciate, Laura, so much, like you sharing all of your knowledge and expertise around this. Like I said, I feel like from the time that I met you, of kind of diving into tracking a little bit more and understanding specifically the app that we use to track, like it was just really eye-opening for me. And I hope that, again, the message here is one of hope and one that is a sustainability message and a good habits message. Because again, guys, I think the goal of, I think the consensus probably is like everybody wants to eat intuitively, but without putting in the work and the time to understand all of the things that come with tracking your food, it's going to be really, really challenging and almost impossible, in my opinion. And so I do appreciate you, Laura, sharing all your knowledge and information with us today. Guys, be sure to follow Laura on Instagram. All of her socials are going to be, you have a few of them. There's a training one, like a nutrition one, right? And then like your personal one. But anyways, I'm going to put all of that in the show notes or description. Socials. Do you have a podcast too, Laura?
No, I just like to talk to everybody else. I just like to talk to my friends and then collate them to my own podcast. So.
Awesome. I love it. And then anything else. So, we'll put the website in there as well, but highly recommend and encourage you guys to follow her and continue to learn from her, because everything she puts out is very, very informative. So Laura, thank you so much for taking your time to be here. Good luck with the move. I know you're in the process of moving to Texas. And so I hope that goes well and smoothly. Hope you find a place with a fridge and a washer and dryer and all of that.
I hope
Apparently
so too.
that's a thing in Dallas, huh?
Yeah, apparently Dallas doesn't have refrigerators in their rental houses, which is just mind-blowing to me. And stoves that are made for, I don't know, Smurfs to be cooking on. So this is the whole thing. But yeah, Luke, thank you so much for having me on today.
Yeah.
So glad I got to help, chat with your audience, and look forward to connecting with you guys on social afterwards.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura. Thanks, guys, for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and share it with anybody that you think might benefit from it. The more we share it and spread the message about it, the more it'll grow. So if you found it helpful and useful, please share it with somebody. But thanks again, guys. Laura, have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon.